I'm not talking, but hey, you guys know me. I'm Rhodes. Thank you for coming out tonight. So a few little housekeeping things. If you don't know, I did make a Google Calendar. So if you guys want that, you can have, it's on the link tree. If you don't know what link tree is, just go to the Instagram. I think that's the link that we have there. And you can find the Google Calendar added to there. So I try to keep it updated with all the stuff we're doing. So if you want to come to a class or whatnot, I think I've got it through July at this point. We do have some upcoming events, and there's going to be a lot of things kind of back to back. We have a fifth Monday in May, and then we have 3 meetups in June. Because we have a QT viewing party, stuff like that. So we're going to have a lot more stuff coming out. And I may even have a little birthday party. Maybe, if you guys want to come to birthday party. But one of the...
Received it.
Yeah.
Enthusiastic.
Rhodes, when's your birthday?
May 7th, but we're not doing it then. If the main thing for a lot of us to do is to go onto the Film Commission page and set up your account if you haven't already. We really want to represent the upstate when some productions come in, so make sure you're doing that. Next meetup is the 17th, and it's just a regular meetup. I'm trying to think of what else is going on. Details to come. The current film challenge is to replicate a movie scene, if you guys haven't seen that. So if you find a movie scene in your of your favorite movie and try to replicate it, 8-minute max. Try to get 3 people from Film Bar in there because we want to be including other members. And then the extra challenges, do it as a oneer if you want to. But tonight we have audio class. You guys came out. So hopefully you guys don't know too much about audio because it's kind of the reason. But I'll let these guys go through and kind of introduce themselves.
Hey everybody, I'm Travis Bakos. I run Transient Audio Productions, and looking forward to talking about sound.
What do you do?
What do I do? So, Transient Audio, if you want to write down, transient is the moment when 2 objects collide, and it's the impact of those 2 objects. And so my business is creating audio projects with impact.
And
I do documentaries and films.
On set and
post.
On post.
I'm Neil Lee Griffin. I'm a film composer and sometimes a re-recording mixer. So if you need music, if you need ADR done, if you need surround sound for theatrical release, we can do that. So pretty much anything, audio, film, music, I love it all.
If you're in this group, you've probably already seen his name in the credits. You've probably already heard his music. He's done a lot for us. Yeah. You can keep asking that one. It's fine.
Well, I'm Ian. I'm a voice actor. I never set out to be a voice actor. It happened by accident when I arrived in the States. And I get paid for waving my arms around and swearing a bit in lots of video games, which is kind of fun. I'm not technical, so
Award-winning voice actor.
Award-winning voice actor, thank you. Yeah, so I set out in 2014 to have a go at being a voice actor, not knowing anything or anyone, and 6 years later I won Voice of the Year in the UK. So
Good job.
thanks, Rhodes.
I'm Gavin Harwell. I'm a production sound mixer on set, location sound. I try not to boom up.
Yeah. You're mostly in Charlotte?
I am in Charlotte, yeah. I travel anywhere that pays mileage and puts me up, but I do a lot of work in Charlotte because that's where I live. I love making movies, so I'm excited to get talking about it.
Cool. Yeah, if you guys have questions, get those out. I'll start off, but you guys can pick this up if you want to, or just speak loudly. Cool. So I'll start off with the first question. You kind of already gave us your intro, but can you tell us a little bit more about some of the roles that you've played either on set or both in sound, and what was kind of involved in that role? Just a quick little 1-minute synopsis. Give us an idea of a little bit more of an idea of what you do.
Well, I do on-set location recording, so I hold a boom pole. Usually, for documentaries, I'm kind of a one-man show, so I hold the boom pole and the recorder, fairly mobile setup. So, yeah, I pride myself in that. I went to Poland just last summer, and that was a very enjoyable trip. Got to meet a lot of people in the church and giving aid to the Ukrainians, and that was very fulfilling. So
Cool. Well, I guess add to it how you got into it as well.
oh, how I got into it. So I went to Bob Jones for a couple years, studied their cinema program. Just always just enjoyed the immersion. I think audio is, George Lucas said, 50% of the picture. I would argue more, obviously. You can't really, if you watch a film with no audio, you're kind of up a creek with no paddle. If you listen to just the audio, you'll get the main story gist. And we've been telling ourselves stories, auditorially for thousands of years. So that's the main communicator, I think, is sound, and that's how I've really enjoyed the immersion, and the picture that goes along with it's cool too. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Well, doing anything from music that hits certain edits in your movie. Y'all know what film scores are and how they're written to time out to the action on the screen. Sometimes it's harder than others. I never went to school for any of it. I'm all just kind of self-taught. But I've always just loved audio and sound, and just how sounds can paint a picture. Sounds can make you see something that isn't there, so to speak. And just like growing up, like I would watch a show just for the theme song in the beginning, even if I didn't like the show, but I liked the song. So music always resonated with me on kind of the next level. And then from that, I wanted to take it a step further. So learning about sound design and dialogue and how to get everything to sit in the mix, with dynamic compression and side chains and all this stuff. And then from that, branching out into more like, when you watch a movie on your TV, you hear it with maybe 2 speakers, but it's made for at least 5.1.
Yeah.
So your TV is folding it down into just 2, but the immersion is there if you can split it out into the correct channels. And that was a game changer for me, just the space that you get sonically in mixing in 5.1, especially for theaters, because theaters are built for 5.1, and now they're built for Atmos, which is 14, do you know this? 17 speakers, depending on.
It's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
But so it's just, I just love what you can do creatively in a sonic space in 5.1 with film, whether it's music or sound effects or dialogue, having things fly around you. It was just, that was like, that was a next level realization for me. And it was like, I still have a lot more to learn. So I just dove headfirst into it. And, but these days I'm doing film scores primarily for Mar Vista Entertainment, and there's a lot of them coming out. So I'm pretty busy doing that as of now. So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
I feel inadequate. I basically live in a 6x4 windowless box with a single soundtrack and recording in mono. So it's pretty, from that point of view. I mean, but the internet changed the world for voice actors. I think that the days where they had to be in a big market and they had to wander around from studio to studio to get work, and the internet allowed people like me to enter into the industry with a home studio in a spare room in my home, as long as it's decently sound treated, and the internet allows me to find customers all over the world. I sometimes joke that the first, although it's not a joke because it actually happened, but it's kind of nice wordplay, but the first customer I ever booked to work with was for somebody in New York, and the second person I ever booked work with was in New Zealand. And I've been doing work with people everywhere in between ever since. Most of what a voice actor does, you would never know that we're there, really. Our job is to fade into the background so that you see the story and the commercial, whatever, and voice actors are sort of anonymous. That's kind of a bit weird, but that seems to be changing a little bit with the young people of today. They love the anime and they love the video games, and the voice actors that portray the main characters in these things are becoming celebrities, and we were never prepared for that. We never expected it. So that's a bit weird for some of the games that I'm in. But the communities are lovely. It's nice to have fun with them. I tend to be pretty sarcastic. They'll ask me what's my favorite color, or those sort of things, and I try and broaden it out from there. So most of what I do is very solitary. It's just me. I don't feel very lonely because of all the voices in my head, all the characters that I create. I've done a lot of work for the Warhammer universe, and I was counting up today. I was writing out all the characters, and I'm in 4 different games, but I have played 22 different Warhammer characters so far, and I was writing out all the names, which was surprising that it was that many. But so that's kind of cool. Now that Henry Cavill has come out of the closet and said that he likes Warhammer, it's suddenly become a big thing. Now that someone famous is involved, so that's happening. The biggest game franchise I'm involved in is a game called Payday.
I used to play them. Now I'm thinking through all the voices.
Okay, well, I'm Vernon Locke.
Oh.
I play Vernon Locke with a bad South African accent. That's me.
You can find my computer.
So this year, the new iteration, Payday 3, is coming out, and nobody quite knows yet. None of the actors know if it's going to be us or not. So that's all a bit stressful, whether you're still going to be involved with the franchise. But it's kind of cool. But most of what I do is anonymous. You'd never know I was there, but that's what I do.
I got started doing production sound basically to fill a need because I wanted to make movies and no one wanted to do sound. And I would watch local short films and other short films to just get a taste of what's expected, in making these. And almost unanimously, they all sounded terrible. And it sounded like you have this really intense scene, 2 actors, and you have this tinny camera mic that's recording them because they're like, yeah, we have the sauce on this scene, and it's like you've lost all of it because you can't hear the performances. And so for me, that was the biggest reason I jumped into wanting to do it, is because it's, your actors are the film, right? Like, they're delivering the performance of what you're watching, and it's a disservice at a minimum. It's a disservice to them, and as a result, the whole crew, bringing them out there, taking everyone's time, paying them with pizza, not paying them anything, and the film is garbage. And so I'm also very precious about film, which some people aren't, but that was the biggest reason I jumped into sound, and it was to fill a need. And then I found out that it was a career. I never thought about it as a career. And once I found that out, it was pretty much full steam ahead. And I'm fortunate that no one really wants to do it because there's few of us, which means I tend to work a lot sometimes. So that's also good. Everybody's clawing to get in the camera department, whether that's as a first AC, second AC. Everyone wants to be a DP, and then if you work with DPs, it's like you don't want to do that job because it's more politicking than anything else. But yeah, no one wants to do sound. So, and I'm sure 99% of jobs you're showing up by yourself. So you're the sound guy, the sound person, you're it. And the camera team has anywhere from 3 to 7 people, depending on the camera size. So, but yeah, anyways, I just wanted to make movies. I wanted to make good movies, and sounds 50, 51 more. The greatest filmmaker of all time is John Williams. So like the music aspect, like I think music is probably obviously I said actors are like the film, but when you watch a movie with that kind of music, it transports you, it takes you to a different place. So sound is obviously hugely crucial, especially dialogue. Like I try not to get hung up on being perfect, which that is my Enneagram type. Like that is my personality, is being perfect. So that was a big learning curve, jumping on sets, and the sets are terrible and everything sounds bad and you can hear them, but it's like, it's not your fault, So learning that you can control some things and not control other things, and then just, kind of washing your hands with it, providing options if you can. But my job, and he would agree, I'm sure, my job is for providing options of clean dialogue on set, and providing options for 20 people to hear this interview, and they're up a floor and across a hallway, and they want to stay in that room because that's where the video village is, and you have to somehow take your stuff and get the audio to get to them without a delay. And it's just providing options. It's like, you might be stressed out on days like that, but you have to come up with a solution because it's what you're getting paid to do. But as a crew member, you're kind of the redheaded stepchild. Like, it's no one likes you. I have shot and I've directed 2 shorts. I didn't have location audio on either of them except for a very brief monologue scene, and it's because sound sucks and it's annoying to have on set, and you want to just fly through your day and get your shots, and that's what's important, and you can deal with it on the back end. I wrote those shorts specifically for that. As a sound person, knowing what it would take on the back end without dialogue and all that stuff, but it's just knowing the project. And it seems like most people shoot and write dramas, and if you do that, then and it's talking, you have to hire people like us because it's going to be terrible if you don't.
Well, and on those lines, I would say if you're running an independent shoot, you're all by yourself, and sometimes you have to do that, and it's fine. What I would say is I would always listen. I mean, you have a camera department, and how many monitors do they have up? 2, 3. I've seen 4 or 5 monitors up. They're always watching that image. And so if you see a camera operator and he doesn't have his headphones on, then just walk away, because somebody needs to be listening at all times, making sure that something's not going wrong. And if they need to do another take, then somebody's got to know that. And the only way that they're going to know that is if they're listening. So I would say, even if you're on an independent film set, have some headphones. Make sure you're listening.
Can you describe the difference between what you do and what the sound mixer does, between the boom and the sound mixer? Why are you guys have 2 separate jobs?
Well, it's not necessarily 2 separate jobs.
I think we're both about the same. I mean, I do my mixing, but I'm usually by myself.
Sure. If you're doing doc work, you're for sure by yourself. and you're bagging it, you're one-man banding it, which means you will fly a boom when you need to. I try not to, because unless the lavs are just terrible and you can't get it to work and you're kicking yourself, then you would take the boom out. But I mean, 99% of jobs that I'm doing by myself. You are the solo sound on set. Movies are different. That's why I'm trying to do more films, is because I have a lot of gear.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
I don't want to push that around. I don't want to hold that boom pole. I don't want to do any of that. I want to have the equipment, know how to use it, tell people, like, delegate responsibilities, so that I'm not doing everything.
For a film, I would have a boom operator.
At a minimum. Yeah.
And always be nice to your sound guy, because they can make you sound good and they can make you sound bad. They can choose.
And they're always listening.
Yeah, you talk about voices in your head. Sometimes there's 10 new ones when you jump on a set.
That you have no control over.
Yeah, you have to have them on.
The I'm trying to collectively put that all in one question, but you've got, your ambient sounds, you've got your just on-set sounds that you want to get, and then you've got your Foley or canned sound effects, and then assembling all that together for you. Do you do any sound effects too, or are you just doing composing as well?
Yeah, I do sound effects and
Sound effects, yeah.
Foley.
And you're mostly pulling those in, you're not creating those, right?
It's about half and half.
Half and half. So, and then you have to do all the grunt noises and everything.
Yeah.
So there's all these.
Well, an
little-
ADR as well. I mean, that's a whole other thing.
So dialogue and music are two big chunks of it, but the thing that fills it in, all those little grunts, all those little sound effects, really kind of tell the story a lot and
Gives
gives
it
you
the life.
the life of it.
It breathes.
Yeah. Can you guys talk about that a little bit, like just
Just
I
capturing
think that's
it?
it, really. I mean, in real life, we
Building
don't
the
just
environment.
say words with no breath or no thought going on
Right.
between the words,
or
and like just that,
Yeah.
and we stumble over what we're going to say, what we're going to
And
what we're going to
Those are really
say.
good examples.
There you go.
And we're sitting here talking, and I'll move, and you'll hear my clothes.
Yeah, so as
it's-
an actor in a controlled environment, you're trying to recreate real life in what is kind of maybe an artificial set of circumstances.
Right, and then like what I do, like if they've got a lav on, sometimes if they'll move while they're talking, it'll be all scratchy, so they'll have to ADR that, or sometimes if it's like on a syllable or two, I can pull it from another word that they said and splice it in.
It's so fun.
Yeah,
It's so fun.
but just
I'm glad you like it.
Oh, yeah.
just the small closed rustles of
Yeah.
like if we're sitting here talking and I shift and you hear the squeak of the couch, and it's like if I don't hear that, I'll add that in because it gives it the realism in the scene if it needs it.
Right.
Now sometimes the director may just want the dialogue and music depending on what's going on, but if it's real quiet, you really need all these sounds to make it
Real.
real.
Yeah, because I think we hear them, but we filter them out so that we don't hear them. If that's so we can
Right.
focus on the conversation. But when they're not there, you notice.
You may not know why it sounds weird,
Right.
but subconsciously you're like, something's off.
I had a director mention, he's like, I'm getting a lot of rustle, and they were pointing to their chest, and I was like, you're just hearing the boom. You're just hearing the way the jacket moves. Underneath, it sounds terrible. You're not listening to that, because it was a leather jacket of some kind, and they were just hearing what's above. And I mean, if you move, I can hear that. I don't
Right.
need a mic on you to be able to hear that, right? So it was just funny that he tried to give me a hard time, and I'm like, you're hearing real life. You're hearing the actual jacket.
I'm hearing clothing rustle.
Like if it's a restaurant, that's why the ice is fake. So when they're picking up the glass, you don't hear it in the mic.
I lived
But
in
later, I'll have to add that in.
I lived in Holland for almost 10 years. When we came back to the UK, when we first went back to the UK, I was in like a bar, and there was something wrong, and I didn't know what it was, and it took me about 2 hours and 2 or 3 beers, and I suddenly realised nobody was speaking Dutch. I couldn't speak Dutch. I didn't know that, but it was suddenly not there anymore, and my whole head was like really discombobulated by it.
That when you got back?
In the
Yeah,
UK,
in the UK,
I was
yeah.
in a bar in the UK, and I was like, "What's wrong? What's different? Why am I not feeling very comfortable?" And it was just that background hubbub that I was used to in a bar wasn't there anymore.
And expound on that room tone and just how important that is, even if it's barely there, just to help fill out the space. Again, I mean, depending on the narrative. But if it's real quiet, there's always some kind of noise floor that you just subconsciously always hear.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, not so much in here because
Yeah, the
it's
difference in
treated
this
in
room
the
and
studio.
the room over there is a completely
Good job, by the
different
way. But there's usually like an AC on or some kind of fan, something.
Yeah.
And that's what breathes the life into the audio.
And you'd say sound is probably the thing that makes or breaks, like you were saying, makes or breaks a film. That really sows your colors of.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
film.
I've not done much at all, but I've done post sound for a couple of buddies' short films, and I would geek out about room tone transitions, like a person going from one room into another, and that your ears just do something when you're walking into a very different space. And so I was geeking out about how it sounded in my mix, and then they put music over it. And I was like, oh.
But you know it's there.
I know it's there, man. It sounded so good. But yeah, it puts you in the space. Sound.
Yeah.
Puts you in the space.
Ken, I don't know if you want to step in or if you guys can answer, but this room specifically, can you talk a little bit about why this is special?
There's no right angles.
Yeah, so
There's
Ken was
no
talking.
right angles, there are no parallel
No
walls.
parallel
Yeah.
walls.
So if you look
We
at,
can't
like,
hear
for
you.
instance,
Hey, Ken,
What's that?
you have to go. We can hear you.
oh, there. So to be recorded.
Yeah.
Sorry. Here, I'll come over.
There you go.
I'll sit next to you.
You wanna sit?
I'll sit over
You
here.
sit right here?
Yeah, I'll sit over here. I want to be. Ooh, this is gonna stay with me. But yeah, if you notice in here, there are no parallel walls, so you can tell this wall over here is slanted in. So the acoustics of a room always have to do with what is reflected back. So material and angle of where the sound is, and obviously what you guys know is the position of your boom can determine how it sounds. So in here, the way it sounds, so if we listen to this,
Oh, that's nice.
there's no reflections at all. It's dead. These are treated walls here because I'll move the piano over here if I want to get a really dead sound and open up the piano and face it that way and catch a live kind of feel, but very, very controlled. But yeah, that's your answer to your question is like, you can get away with room treating because, the typical YouTuber or something, they'll just go buy the panels, right? And they'll just shove them on the wall. They don't really think about it. Well, it does. Yeah, or the egg crate stuff. Yeah. They just glue it on there and they're like, yeah. And it does. It helps. It helps to, sorry if you do that, by the way. It does. It helps a lot. Like, it really does. But based on the density of the material, you're still going to get a lot of boom coming through, like the lower frequencies. So you want to use something, I think we were talking earlier, like a bass trap. That's higher density stuff. So if you get too dense, it's going to bounce off. But if it's too translucent, it'll go through it and not really capture it. So I'm getting way too deep into this because I really love it. So I'm sorry. But in here, so stay focused. In here, you get away with not having to do a ton of sound treatment because the angle of the walls diffuses the sound in a very balanced way. I'm a big fan of sound diffusers as opposed to sound absorbers because if you have a completely dead room, there's no life. You have to go and add it. So, and maybe that's what the director wants, that's what in ADR, you want it as dead as can be. So
Since you said that, sorry, I'm going to interrupt.
Yeah.
Diffusion is to change direction.
Right. Yep. Diffusion. So you'll see one of the cool trendy things they do now is like they'll take the wood and you'll see like all different squares and different angles. That's essentially, you know, a diffuser. So it takes the sound, and there's actually algorithms or math to that. I won't get into that, but based on what kind of what kind of a sound you want is quantized by math based on angles of the diffusion panels. So really cool. That's something to go deep dive, you know, when you're at 2 a.m. on your phone.
Nerd alert.
Yeah, that's me. That's why I'm tired, because I stay up really watching videos like that.
One of those things, you know, they call those like skyline panels, don't they? Because they look like a skyscraper skyline.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like Google Maps.
Yeah, and just the different angles. So, do you guys know what? Okay, so you said room tone, and capturing it for film. Do you guys know what a room tone is? It's more for live stuff. So every room has a certain frequency, one or more. There could be several that are louder than others. So, what you do when you're mixing in a live session, for here, what I do in here is there may be certain notes or frequencies that appear louder than other frequencies, and that's basically on the dimensions of the room. Again, math.
The room modes.
What's that?
The modes of the room.
Yeah.
Depending on
Absolutely.
size and
Yep.
the knolls
And sometimes you want that. Sometimes
Right.
that's what we work so hard is to find what that resonance is to create the sound we want. Because I do that a lot too. I do a lot of post-production stuff where I'm like, how do I make it match what the production sound was?
right.
That is the bane of all post-production people.
Especially if it's ADR and you gotta like.
Yes.
But they did it in a vocal booth, but you gotta make it sound like it's in a gymnasium.
Right. Yep. And that's why they went to the MK416s, which is a shotgun microphone for studio work, because they're trying to match what was recorded on set.
Yeah.
What this guy recorded, they're trying to match there. And even in proximity too. So let's say you have a scene just like this, people talking on a couch, and the angles from here, right? This is all very understandable. Your boom perhaps is maybe right here in the middle. Oh, look at this. Here we go. How would you boom this?
Shadow.
Shadow? Yeah.
Seeing some shadow.
So with studio lights like that, it's shining directly on your face. So if
Yeah.
I want to be forward of his face, but pointed at his mouth. So if that spot's blocked,
Yeah.
then I'll check the camera, and if I have to go under, then I'll go
Yeah.
under.
Yep.
Which that might be the best option for this one, but
then you get a lot of like touching of clothes and stuff you don't want to
Right.
get to when you're
Yeah,
under.
right. And it really depends what every situation's unique. But so I was talking about distance to the microphone. So when you record in a booth, or when they do ADR, yeah, and you're this close to it and it was recorded there, this guy over here on post-production, or, you know, this guy's over here is going, because
Too close.
it's and there's a big difference. And so I use this illustration sometimes that I find funny, because I grew up in a tiny little church where, you know, the guy running sound was deaf, you know, and he, you know, it just feedback all the time, you know. And the only time anybody knew that the sound guy existed was when something went wrong. So that's like the goal of everybody is here, is to not exist. So once the story is told, unless I mean, and a lot of you people are filmmakers, I'm assuming, or actors, or people that are aware of the sound people. But like, yeah, sound people, we're gonna like start raging here. So, but
I don't think that's our MO.
I forgot where I was going with that, but yeah. So it's all part of what helps feed the story. You know, whatever the story is, you want to make sure that you're
Guys
not
want to get together and
distracted
listen
from.
to some soundscapes?
I am curious to hear your music, and we probably might do that as well.
Well, and then in a voice actor's environment, I can use that to my advantage because I can get up close to the mic and speak quietly, but get a really deep, rich tone because of the proximity effect of the mic. And I use that, like in Germany, they love the deeper the voice, the richer the voice, the more they like it. So I'll use that to my advantage to book work in Germany.
Yeah. So these microphones here are the Electro Voice RE20s. They're a dynamic microphone. They're really
Don't look at me.
Well, you were talking about.
Yeah, let's just run
It's
right
okay.
over here.
I'm throwing that in there for reference later. Yeah. It's a really dark microphone, and what I mean by that is it catches the warmth and the low tones and the dulcet tones. This has been the industry standard radio broadcast mic, the typical boomy sound you hear when somebody's next door and of a radio in the next door. That's the dulcet tones coming through probably the exact mic like that. So
I thought that was the SM7B.
Well, yeah, a lot of people, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Anybody have it? Yeah, Mark.
How do you guys, or for the production and sound mixers, handle sound issues involving other departments? Do you go talk to them directly, like, hey, this clothing that actor is wearing is
Yeah. I just usually shout quiet on set a little bit louder next time.
AD about it?
So is it a question of people behind the scenes being loud, or if you need to fix the mic?
Oh no, for example, like for wardrobe, like whatever the actor's wearing is causing an issue with the sound, or like the shadow or props. It's not really good for.
You want quiet props.
Catheter would be a bad idea.
What's that?
Loud and noisy.
A catheter?
Taffeta.
Taffeta.
I thought you said catheter too. It's a type of.
Would be uncomfortable.
Like on a historical fiction set with all those rustly clothes.
Yeah.
Well, there's all kinds of wire gags and stuff for mics, man. I mean, I'm sure I'm curious to know what you have in your kit.
Lots of stuff.
Yeah, man.
I remember when I jumped in, and you probably had the same experience. Like, how do you make a mic not sound rustly? Google, and then you find JW Sound, and it's like a whole forum group think, and they're all like, there is no answer, because it's always different, and so that's why you have 12 different tapes, 4 different mounts, 100 different sticky. Like, you just have to have all the word I used, the dinner options. You have to have options for the scene, because every single time is different.
So you don't try to get wardrobe to work around you. You try to work around.
Well, like when you're big leagues, y'all have a month or so to work at that. Like you have fittings, you have the sound mixer and utility probably go talk with wardrobe about what problems they'll face. And it could not even be the rustle. It could be, where do we put the transmitter? Right. Because if they're in it and they can't get out of it, then you need to worry about battery life and like that kind of thing. And that requires this transmitter, not this transmitter. And
ladies without pockets. I mean.
It really depends. Like the leather jacket, obviously, often that's a non-negotiable, or that would be something that would be negotiated beforehand.
Yeah, puffer jackets.
You're relying on the boom a lot for that. I mean, a leather jacket is just, your lob's going to be toast.
Yeah, I talked. I was on a film and we had 2 girls in puffer jackets, and it wasn't even that cold, but that's what we were doing, and. Not to mention, we were by a waterfall, but that was beside the point.
We'll just mention it.
Just gonna throw that in there. They had puffer jackets, and I told them, I said, we have tried all the places. They're animated people talking in this scene. The boom, like I mentioned before, the boom hears the jackets because that's life. That's what you're hearing. And so I mentioned, this wide tight thing that y'all have going on. For this one, we'll need to work around it. Mediums and close-ups the whole way. And they were accommodating. I have been on a feature where I said, the boom was not playing in the shot at all because of A, cams wide. It was the whole room, could see all y'all pretty faces. And then B was like this close on our subject. And I'm like, this will make no sense to anybody watching it because it's gonna be what it is.
Yeah.
And then they refused everything I mentioned. So that was fun. That was a fun 18-day shoot.
If it's a necklace or something, often those can be either swapped out. They'll have, wardrobe will have other options. If it's a necklace that like sits right there on top of your mic, that sometimes you can just have them move it up a little bit. If it jingles a lot, you know, that's a common problem. But yeah, swapping it out for a different one or just lifting it up a little bit helps a lot.
I've asked athletes if they cared to remove their jewelry for like doc style stuff where I could not boom very much, and most of them were pretty cool with it. But I mean, that's just like a, hey bro, like this could be a really rough day for me, or we could be best friends. What do you want to do?
So you try to handle a problem like one-on-one instead of going to the director or the AD to tell the other person like, hey, this is.
Yeah, sorry, got lost with your original question. If there's a rustling issue, you typically just have to solve that internally, ideally with your team. The other benefit of having a third sound person is so that the boom operator is doing their thing, you're doing your thing as the mixer, and you have one other person dealing with that issue where you can be like, hey, fix it, it's bad again, or I'm hearing it when she does this or he does this, and then you have a designated person to mic.
And he's called the technician.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like the utility or the technician, yeah. And those are invaluable. To me, that is, as lavs are so important in the shows that I've done, that not that the boom is less important because it's your main microphone, but on some scenes and some shots, it's like really tough to get in there. So you're relying on the wiring. I've had a utility once, so I've done all the wiring and I know how much of a pain it is. And so it's an invaluable position. But yeah, typically like you just handle that internally. And if it is a wardrobe thing, typically wardrobe's just telling you where something's wrong. It's not the other way around. They're like, hey, we can see it when they turn this way, or transmitter's too big on when she turns her, and it's like, it's
Does everybody
options.
know what ADR is?
Options.
And props,
Props are usually out of your control.
you can just make a suggestion and.
Yeah, it specifically with like drinking, and I know you did Talk Black, right? The short film?
Yeah.
I recognized you.
Yeah.
That sounded great, by the way.
Were you on that?
No.
I do ADR too. I got a little studio.
Is there a difference how you
Yeah, really,
handle
he
it
should
if
be
it's-
sitting here.
If it's an
No,
on-set actor issue with their costume or whatever, or if it's some numpty like me, you know, hanging
Yeah.
out in the back, knocking people over, and
Yeah, that's a production issue. That's where
but you would go through a channel to
Yeah,
sort
typically a PA because they're always around. And if it's a recurring, ongoing issue, you go to an authority, which is the AD. Yeah, and you get in line. I typically never go to the director. The most recent time I did was I had a concern shooting. We were shooting one camera, and it was a horror action-packed scene. Not action like action movie, just it was intense. But we're covering one subject, and they're hashing it out with another person, but they're off screen. And so my issue was in terms of cutting
The overlapping dialogue.
the overlapping dialogue, because I'm listening to it and it sounds correct. They sound great. I can hear both of them perfectly. But it occurred to me, with one camera and we're just seeing you, if their dialogue, how are you going to cut to their coverage if they're constantly talking over each other? And so I went to the scripty first because I was like, this is my thought. Do you think it's going to be an issue? She said she thought it could be. And so I went to the director and mentioned it, and they said, we're cool with it. So
Then you got a call a year later when they were working on it.
I got a call day 2 or night 1 because great job. I don't have to touch things in post. You show up, you do the job, you go home. And then I got an email that night and they said, hey, we're noticing it's super echoey. Is there anything we can do? And the next morning I went in and took a picture of studio. It was a warehouse with an open ceiling, and
Getting
it was an
echo.
open
see where
ceiling
that could
because
cause
of
an
a
issue.
because of a light grid that they had to light things the way they wanted to. And I just took a picture, and I didn't even say anything. I just sent the picture as it was, and then they were like, "Got it, cool, thanks." I was like, "If y'all have $1 million more to treat this space in now, but we're shooting, man. Y'all should have solved this."
Sometimes, I mean, I had to get really creative. So the last film shoot I was on, I worked with Sam Reed. He did a film called Harbor, and we shot over in Camden. That was a lot of fun, by the way. It was a really, really, really intense shoot, but had a lot of fun on it. But there's several kind of violent scenes, exactly what you're saying, where somebody's right up against somebody else. And if you only have one camera, when the overlapping audio, kind of stuff like that. Or if you're shooting an intimate scene where somebody's really close and you can't mic here, or goodness, ladies with their wardrobe, it is so hard to mic sometimes. Sometimes I just did a hair rig or something in the ear, and because then I could only really rely on, besides my boom, that one mic here. Because if somebody's kissing or talking or fighting in their face, you get one mic right here. You can get both of them. But again, if you're doing that 2 camera setup, it's all just being creative.
Options.
Options. Yeah.
Does anybody else have
Yeah.
a question? That they
You can put a mic in a hat.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I've got.
Yeah.
So we're kind of talking about gear. Can you guys talk a little bit more about some of the main tools you use, either on set or post?
I'm curious what DAW you use.
Yeah.
Logic.
Oh man.
What
I'm
do
a
you
Reaper
use?
boy.
Reaper. There we go.
Very nice. I'm a Pro
So
Tools
yeah, talk
guy.
about some of the.
Pro Tools.
Yeah, I got certified it and
Don't get
everything.
too techy.
Sick.
'cause-
No, too techie. So, obviously, rudimentary is microphone. You start at the mic. Microphones need preamps. How do you get preamps? Either a recorder such as this one. Some cameras have a preamp, and you can plug the microphone directly in the camera. They're usually not as nice as a dedicated recorder, and most cameras only record in 16-bit versus a recorder like this will record 32-bit, which is just a higher resolution.
In other words, a preamp is power for the
Yeah.
mic, kind of, and
Yeah.
how we control it.
So preamp and then recorder, and then the recording is synced with picture and post usually.
Or
And
there's
what's
slated.
on the top of your boom there?
On top of
The blimp.
The blimp.
oh,
The mic?
this is it. Blimp is, this is for outdoor use. I would not recommend something like this for inside. Usually this just snaps on like so. And you can use a boom mic. Actually, for indoors, there's some people say that you shouldn't use a boom pulse or a boom mic. Sometimes you want to use a cardioid, which is a little bit shorter and doesn't have as many ribs on it. They're usually about this long, but so some people use those for indoors, and this is for like your outdoor scenes.
The longer the boom mic, the more directional the input of the signal. So kind of just a general way to think about it. So if you see somebody, like, I forget the one that they had, but it's literally like this long.
For like football games.
Yeah, for like football games.
They can literally
Pay attention if you're watching basketball or football or something. Pay attention to the sound guys running. They look crazy. You'll see them with the big, like
Discs,
half
parabolic discs.
parabolic discs, like getting the sound. But like, woo,
And what happens if that's used inside? What does that do to the sound?
oh, you'll have a bad time.
Just a bad
I mean, reflections. You're just capturing everything. It's like
Right,
turning
so-
the volume up.
So this is designed to get those reflections. The recording capsule is right here, the diaphragm. And so how it works is your source is coming in here, and any audio that's coming in this way gets rejected or gets negated this direction. So theoretically, you shouldn't be able to hear it. What the problem that happens in a small space is you get your dialogue coming in here, and your dialogue's also bouncing off a wall and coming and hitting here. And so your dialogue actually can be muffled if it's getting sent into those rejection ports too much, and that's where you'd want a cardioid instead of a shotgun mic. And you can get a nice funny effect if you like come at it. If you're not pointed directly at your talent, if you're pointed not like this, and you're pointed like this.
Hello, test.
It can make some really weird, like it can really muffle your sound because it's getting into that rejection port instead of.
I nearly killed my boom up one time because we had this woman. Everyone was seated around a pool, but she was talking like this, like talking to everybody like this and this and this, and that was how that was going to play out. So I told Kevin, and I was like, I need you to land those, like full stop. And he was like, all of them? And I was like, yeah. Because the difference, like if he's here when she turns her head, which like he's not going to nail all of them, right? But the difference in here versus even here is significant. It just will sound more accurate to her voice if it's landing on axis each time, if that makes sense. So very important job. I didn't mean to diminish it earlier when I was talking about utilities. Boom op's very important.
Do you have, maybe we can like
Headsets?
do a little test afterwards so people can kind of hear the difference.
Oh, yeah.
It's moved
Sure.
around.
I do have a question, kind of a segue, something I've always wondered. I've seen every sound person different. If you have a conversation with two people and you don't know if you're going to get that second take for time or whatever, which you need it, do you guys follow both between, or would you make the decision to just get all their dialogue and the next take get all of this person's dialogue? If that makes sense. I've seen some people, if you have, actor A and actor B, do you get all of actors A on the one take, and then the take B, you get all of actor B?
Is the camera seeing both of them?
Let's just say for the.
Then no, you have to get both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to cover if whoever's on screen at that moment, that's the person you want to get.
But if they're like in a two shot, and let's just say for time, if you have to make a decision, even though it's not the right way, would you be like, I'm not doing it, it's not right, or do you have to?
Yeah, I would get either two mics, one on each person.
Yeah,
I'd get
off my chair and
just try to follow it.
Second boom it if I needed to.
If they're close
I was
enough.
just curious, yeah.
Yeah, if they're close enough, especially if they're like sitting at a table and you're just rocking it back and forth like this.
Yeah, that's
you can get both of them just like that.
I mean, I'm talking about time, running gun type of thing. But I was curious. I've seen people do it, and I've always wondered because it seems like the correct way also is get both.
I mean,
when they're on camera.
What you're describing sounds terrible.
No, absolutely, yeah.
And I've been in a situation like that.
And if they're saying we're moving on, they're saying we're moving on, then we're moving on.
No, exactly, yeah. I just didn't know how you guys make those calls if you are on that type of set where it is kind of, you don't know if you're going to take, and you already know you're kind of in a, bad situation going in, but you're just kind of rolling the punches. How do you make that decision? If it's, so, but you guys answered.
Yeah, I mean, if it's like you and me talking, then there needs to be a source here and a source there, or I get what you're saying. I think in a world where I didn't have any options, then you just commit to making one mic sound perfect and then getting coverage with the boom microphone on another person. That just sounds miserable.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you always mic the actor or allow the actors for a backup for the boom?
Yeah, and as I was saying earlier, sometimes the lav is the primary mic.
Oh.
It just is. I had one. It was a buddy too, so it made me really upset. But he was like, "Yeah, so for this, we just like the boom sound. We don't like lav sounds. You can mic them if you want, but we just like the boom." And I was like, "That is not your call." And two, you're gonna go two cameras, and I know I'm gonna be screwed. So, I have gotten a little irked being on sets with you're miking around 8-9 people, and you're looking at the sides. 6 people talk, and you're like, "Why am I miking the 7th, 8th, and 9th person?" Because you never know. They're in the scene. They're in the shot. Director wants them. See, I don't care to capture that. I really don't. It's important for the context of the scene, but I look at it as they've made the commitment to have ADR money. They're gonna ADR whatever they want to. Hopefully it's very minimal, but if it's grunts, great. That's gonna sound better with the mic right here. I don't know.
Options.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, right.
But I'm never out
Summarize
in
this
a,
whole thing and just say,
on
options.
camera set.
Yeah.
In a little controlled environment.
Neil, what gear do you use often?
I'm just a real studio rat, so everything I do is
So you should have
You know.
more microphones. Then.
Yeah,
You
you and
would
me
think-
both. We work in a controlled environment. We have to
Right.
worry about any of that stuff.
I use Logic for everything. If I need Pro Tools for like deliverables or something, I'll source it out. But yeah, just Logic and microphone. It's a warm audio. It's a junior.
Okay.
47.
Yeah,
So-
it's like the Neumann U47 clone,
Yeah,
basically.
it's a warm audio junior, and I'll use that for
Yeah.
everything.
Oh.
I mean, I'm just kind of a one-man show. So
And what are you playing?
Do what now?
You mean you're playing all the instruments?
Yeah, a lot of it's on keyboard and doing the orchestra and everything, and I play a little guitar, a little banjo for those of you who know me from the Comic-Con scene. Yeah, it's really just you can do everything sort of in the box
Yeah.
these days. So I do it because it takes up a lot less space.
It does. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and to that, that's the
you
world
have
I
a
live
question?
in. Yeah.
So, whenever you're outside, and you got your mics, your lavs, all your booms, or whatever you got, obviously it's going to be really noisy and you're going to pick up a lot of stuff. How do you clean that up? Is there something you do, or is this like, well, I can control it on the front end?
You're asking the post people, right?
Yeah.
Whoever can answer the question.
It's not my job to clean it
Whoever
up.
can answer the question.
Isotope,
Yep.
usually
Isotope.
RX9 or
Yeah,
I think they're up to
spectral
10
display.
now. Yeah, they've got. It's kind of a standalone program. You load your audio in, and you can see it visually.
Oh, I use it all the time.
Oh,
I mean, it's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
is
is
that what you use?
that is what
Yeah.
you use.
Yeah.
Okay, tell them about that, because I know it.
Do you use
Well, right
advanced
now.
or the standard?
What is?
Do you
I
use-
the
Well, I have RX8.
There's a big difference between
Yeah.
the standard and the advanced.
advanced is worth it if you don't have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to pay for it. I didn't. Like,
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
it's-
think
it's not
advanced
cheap.
is like $1,200.
If anyone's
Yeah.
not
It
following,
was like
Yeah.
129 or something like what it said. Must be the standard.
129.
So
I got it on special.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Sweetwater had it on special.
So, when you need to clean up audio that you've recorded, Isotope, to my knowledge, is the gold standard. Isotope RX specifically is the cleaner upper. I think for location sound, mixers, recordists, it's important to have a knowledge of that and what's capable of being saved or not. You don't have to know the bells and whistles of how to restore stuff, but you need to have a working knowledge of this sounds bad, but is it fixable? Is it not? Having a working knowledge of whether it is or it isn't.
Right. You can reduce wind noise, for example, but you're not going to remove that lawnmower next door.
Yeah.
Like there are limits to what, if you're working outside, yeah, that's going to be, you're going to have some elements in your recording. It's just a matter of, is this going to be okay for the final product?
Yeah, I did interviews, and it was in the middle of summer, and the cicadas came out, and we had picked a spot for the show that we were going to do interviews for this group here, and so I said it was terrible. We would wait, and then they'd pick up, and then we'd continue whatever. Mm-hmm. But I brought it into RX and did images and sent the files and did my due diligence as the on-set person and sent it to post. And said, can y'all work with this or not? Because I'm happy to tell them we need to move, because this is a you call at the end of the day. They won't listen to me. I'm just the sound guy saying it sucks. And then they said, yeah, y'all need to move. So then we went somewhere else.
That's good that somebody actually did that, because a lot of times
Yeah.
it's your word against theirs. And
Yeah, well, and the cicadas are probably the worst thing on the planet because they're not consistent, right? Like a plane is a plane. A plane's not consistent either, but they start here, end here, and then start here, and then it's just constant bad. So I knew that they would have not fun with that.
To go with a little bit deeper on that, the program he's talking about, RX, has these different modules. Like it's D-clip, D-Russell, dialogue.
Dialogue isolate.
Mouth decode.
Dialogue isolate.
Yeah.
Spectral.
Spectral.
Yeah.
Right, and you can see it on a what's it called?
Yeah, spectral.
spectral
Spectrogram.
Spectrogram. Yeah, and like if there's a bird, you've got your waveform, but you've also got a form behind it, and you can see exactly where the birds are, and you can go in and erase the chirps and leave everything else untouched. It's voodoo.
Yeah.
When you're talking about voice, you're talking about clicks, or you're talking about plosives or something.
Right.
As soon as you know where to look for it, you can always see it. It's like,
Right.
Yeah. Oh, boop.
And I think for people like Woody and I, as just voice actors, we're already, and if you're making music, you're in a controlled environment already. So we're dealing with a smaller number of controllable, errors that we can remove.
And something else
I
about
make a
that.
joke with Ian. I know his voice better than he does. Not really. Not really. Not really.
Yeah, Eddie does a lot of
I
my
know
long
what it,
form
I know what it
editing
looks
for me.
like. I know where to
Yeah.
find what he does.
And with equalizing dialogue, you don't need anything under probably 100 hertz at all, ever. It's like
That's getting a little too scientific.
you'll see these short films or whatever, and you'll just have this rumble because it's not taken out. Like it takes a second. Grab your low shelf and bring it over to 100.
I mean, do you guys want to talk about frequencies and hertz and all that stuff?
And that's a volunteer. I can try to dumb it down a little. Isotope is a great tool. Professionals like us have obviously purchased it. You can do a lot without isotope. You can still do a lot of the volume ramping up and down. You can kill some of it with EQ. You can EQ a lot of the noise if it's a high pitch or a refrigerator down low, like what he's talking about. Gating is a different one, and so there's tools that come with your standard DAW that you can do cleanup with, and that's a whole rabbit hole. But learning
digital audio workstation.
Thank you. Digital audio workstation is short for DAW.
Yeah.
Long for DAW.
It's your editing platform.
If you want to know, are you guys familiar with the YouTube channel Sound Ideas? He's a sound mixer guy. I recently discovered him, and he is fantastic.
Okay.
YouTube channel called Sound Ideas, or look up Sound Speeds. Did you find him? You know who that is?
I've got Sound Speeds.
Sound Speeds. He is
unsubscribed.
absolutely fantastic.
Unbelievable, isn't he?
There's nobody else that really talks about that stuff other than somebody who actually does that, because we're too busy actually doing the work. He's going out and talking about the work.
He will tell you why you don't necessarily need a shotgun or a boom mic inside a booth. No, it's debatable.
Sure, yeah.
But
yeah. But as far as production sound goes, he'll go through he'll do if you're looking at specific product reviews, but he talks about all the stuff that everybody's talking about through here on production sound. Because there's such a big need for that. Like you said, you're probably one of the only few people here in the upstate that has this kind of caliber of doing stuff like that. Because, it's an afterthought. It really is. But yeah.
Ian,
he'll say why he aims his boom at a table to pick up the reflection versus directly at. I mean, I've watched some of his stuff.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable.
Yeah, you can deep dive on it all you want. But he'll go through and explain everything.
I think I've realised what DAW stands for. It's Dark Arts Widget.
Yes. Dark Arts Witchcraft is what it is, yes.
Ian,
Because we don't actually use anything. We just do spells. Yeah.
Multiple microphones for different sounds.
I do have. Well, I have two microphones, but since I bought the second one, I've rarely used the first one. But the reason I have the two,
But they sound different.
Yeah, I have a 416, which is a shotgun mic.
Sennheiser.
the Sennheiser. So I have that because there are certain places in the world, LA in particular, and they use that all the time. So if they're recording me remote, they want me to be using a similar or the same microphone that they've recorded other people on doing the same work, so they have less matching to do. And the other thing that the alternative is a lot of studios have the Neumann U87 microphone. It's a kind of standard studio microphone.
Takes 15 minutes to warm up.
What?
Takes 15 minutes to warm up.
Well,
About $4,000.
So I have a Neumann 103, which is a baby, lookalike, which a lot of home studio talent use. So again, if you're working with a studio that uses a Neumann mic, they want you to use a Neumann mic. So
because they don't sound the same.
You hear stories. You hear stories where the guys go, "Oh, have you not got a Neumann?" And the talent will go, "Yeah, hang on a minute," and he'll go away and I'll come back and do nothing, still use his Shure whatever, and the sound engineer at the other end, I can always tell the difference, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. It's all ones and zeros. I mean, they do sound. They do. I mean, like I was talking earlier about the 416. My voice sounds richer and I don't know, fuller on that mic, so I will use that.
Yeah.
I've taken to using that more because I book more work that way. But for some video game people, they want the Neumann.
And how important are speakers for the two of you?
For me, not much.
Extremely.
Yeah.
There you go. There's the difference.
The end point of it. And headphones for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I use headphones.
So you guys got really nice headphones.
What other equipment do you have at home to record voiceover work at home, besides microphone?
I have a big box that I stand in, and then broadly microphone into an interface into a computer.
So you need an interface of some sort.
Yes.
Unless you've got a USB microphone that plugs directly, but your sound, you get more electronic interference generally from that. So you would normally have, so the piece of kit, the interface in between, provides power to your microphone to make it work, and then it converts the microphone's analog signal into a digital signal to the computer.
This
Is that right? Did I
connector,
get that right way around?
it needs to interface with something. So
XLR.
it's an XLR mic cable, and so you can't plug that into a laptop to record. Maybe you can with some weird Chinese dongle, but you need a box that takes that signal, runs it nice and clean into a DAW, Dark Arts, whatever we landed on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your gear? Did you want to show off some of this?
I like talking about my gear.
Yeah.
Well, the most important thing you can own is this or a camping chair.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing you can own. Because I sit a lot. This is the same more or less setup as him. I have a bag that holds my mixer, recorder. These are my Shure in-ears. I don't wear headphones. They're clunky to me, but it's, you use this, you use that, it doesn't.
I've got my Shores right here.
It doesn't matter, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, it's whatever works for you. I use this stool. Some people will be like, I need a chair with a back. It doesn't matter, whatever works for you.
When you get to my age, you want a chair with a back.
Well, once I'm doing more movies, you know I'm about to get a chair with a back. So inside here, this is something that kind of separates other mixer recorders, I think, is you'll meet some people with a bag, and then they have a really big bag that comes out like to here.
Yeah.
It looks like they have a beer belly or they're...
Some of us actually do.
and it's just filled with receivers for the transmitters that go on people. This one has 2 receivers slotted into the mixer. I could pull it out for you, but each receiver has 4 receivers, or 4 channels to receive. So inside of this unit, you can have 8 people mic'd up, and that's the bag. So 8 people right here. So that's hugely convenient because it's so small. I went from a 23-pound bag with 4 mics, like 4 receivers, to that's at max 10, 90% of the time. And there's a cool like 3D thing that makes it even lighter where I wouldn't need the bag. It would just hook to brackets essentially. So it's like 6 pounds all in. The reason that's important to me is because it's a very grueling and tasking job, especially if you're booming. I see people in their late 30s, early 40s that are having hip surgeries and back surgeries, and I just know that's not going to be me if I can help it. So this was a very important piece of gear for me because I'm looking at not being injured. Yeah, that's basically the coolest thing about that one.
Which interface is it?
It's a Zaxcom Nova.
Okay.
And then another cool thing, and I'll bring it to the camera, don't worry. So this is like that, but this is essentially rain protection. If I took it off, it's similar to that, which is a blimp. Underneath is a blimp, but people think it looks like an alien egg, which it does. But it's just got dark arts witchcraft to make the rain kind of repel off of it. So that just slides on the blimp, and inside the blimp is the mic.
Which shotgun are you running?
So all of my mics are a DPA.
Yeah.
So my 2 shotguns are the 4017, and then I have 2 4018s, which are similar to what you were talking about with indoor mics. Grab it up too. So this is what I use for indoor stuff typically. It's the same deal basically, but less reflections typically. I do love my 4017, the longer one. I do use it indoors just because it's such a flat sound that I'm typically not picking up anything nasty. But you're always going to have some instances where that will just sing a lot better. Sing's probably the wrong term because it does not, the mics do not sing. They're very flat, which is why I picked them.
Flat meaning that the frequency response is not boosted in certain pitches. So some mics are designed to actually accentuate the higher frequencies, a brighter microphone.
Right, yeah.
So, I do that a lot in music. So if I have a female vocalist, I want a bright microphone to catch all that. Sparkle.
Quick tangent on that. There was a film called Lucy where Scarlett Johansson and the sound mixer decided to use one mic for her that was brighter, and everyone else got, I think, the MKH50, which is a typical shotgun, or typical party word. But everyone got that one except her. They had a designated boom that was brighter, and that was just a creative storytelling decision that they made. Most people probably are not going to pick that up, but I'll talk about this too. This is also a DPA mic. It is what I use for car rigs. It's a mini shotgun, essentially. You plug it into the transmitter, you set it into a car visor, boom. So I've done plenty of jobs where if somebody is sitting in the front seat and the camera angle allows, I will not even mic the person, and I'll just stick it up there. And then they say that's a wrap, and then I grab my mic and go home. I don't have to worry about touching the actor.
One of those.
They're pretty fun.
They look great.
Yeah. They're nice.
Well, I'm thinking, so if I'm, as a voice actor, if I'm away from the studio and I find I've got to record something, I'm forever making like pillow forts in hotel rooms or, and I'm thinking something like that would be a great solution.
They're pretty cool. Again, you'd have to find, they make extensions for them. So all of my lav mics that you would put on somebody, all mics have a connector. And all of my lavs are microdot, which is what this is. So they make...
It's small.
They make microdot to XLR. So if you just had a simple way to interface it, then you literally could just use this in the cable. But
that's cool.
I like that one.
Yeah,
Easy.
I could tell.
That's all I got, man. That's it.
Play hot potato. Let's throw that around.
Yeah, take a listen to it. I'm gonna get your space inside, and then everyone knows what these are, but this is a time code slate. Well, it's waiting for the transmitter, but.
Is that the deity one?
No. This is Betso. So the cool thing about, kind of unimportant, but these talk to the slate. I never have to jam the slate. It's pretty cool. Throw that in there.
So something that really makes the post-production guy happy is when your sound is time coded to picture already.
And locked.
Yeah, and locked, so there's no drift. That's where higher end interfaces that can take timecode transmission between the camera and the sound to make sure they're completely synced. Because there's nothing worse than getting a project that drifts over time where you have to manually set up.
You don't get hired again.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
Maybe talking over people's heads again. But
Well, I mean, if you know, it's like watching a Chinese kung fu movie when your sound's not matching up with the word. You know, that's the simplest way I could put it. But
it's not drifting in your car.
yeah, drifting. Yeah, sound drift. Yep.
These are the transmitters I use. Everything I use is Zaxcom. All of my lavs are DPA. Straps. I try not to ever do straps for actors. You put them around their waist. I've also found most actors tend to like it on their ankle, which is what it is. I use pouches, so they typically just like clip into the back of the pants, or this nice lady shows up in a dress, not wearing, anything I can attach something to beyond her bra, or maybe it's not a bra situation. Where do you put it? If she has long hair, you just kind of flip it upside down and tuck it into the back, and you don't see it. So these are pretty cool. It's about options,
Yeah, man.
Of course, it's an open back, and so you can.
Oh, there's I've mic'd lots of places.
Yeah. Not to be
Let
crass.
your imagination run wild, right?
But like, I'm really thankful for the bra mic wise, because you can get great sound and it doesn't move anywhere.
And the tie.
Yep.
Ties are great.
It's like the perfect distance away. So
You just normalize lobs in the shot.
that's right.
You're telling me, dude.
Or you just paint them green. Fix it in post.
So we ran long on this, but just last question: like, what's one or two things that you wish you would have known, like when you started?
How much money I'd spend. That would have been nice to know.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I think it's more a personal thing. I think it's learning to respect yourself and not letting productions or people make you feel inferior, like pay you what you're not worth.
Yeah.
Doing jobs that are just no good. You should really value yourself. So I think that's like the biggest lesson I would have wished I'd learned quicker.
I think that's true across the creative arts. They do that to everybody gets that a little bit. And it's a tough move, isn't it, to go to say no. But it's a very powerful thing.
Yeah, I nearly threw up when I said no to one gig because it was a lot of money, but it should have been like 3 times more. And there's just a line of like, this is gonna be I'm not being valued, right?
Yeah, self-respect.
Yeah, it's like I'm not being respected right now, so if I show up to set, I know I'm not gonna be.
Right.
And so you send sorry, and you go, and then stuff works out. Yeah, works out.
Just just not being afraid to just get out there and do the work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes it's like, am I good enough? You know, can I really do it? You know, it's like, well, the more you do it, the better you'll get, and then people will notice.
That's right. Yeah.
So just to kind of get out of your own way, essentially.
Well, I'd be really happy if I could spend the rest of my days in an editing suite by myself, which is, I think, the demeanor of a lot of sound technicians. But no, getting out and meeting people and talking to you all, and that's how we get things done. It's how we get discovered. It's how we find projects. And so social networking, you know, get involved, just like you guys are doing.
Yeah, I'd agree with everything you guys said. It's really, really important. But then also too, I would put value over technique higher than equipment, because you know, like you said, it can get really, really expensive really fast. If you don't understand the gear, you probably don't need to buy it. You know, like it's okay to run around with a little zoom and you know, a Rode NTG 3 or 4. Heck, I have a NTG 4 Plus I use all the time. It's just easy. Plus it has a battery in it too. So, you know, don't get too hung up on the gear. Or a lot of us are gearheads, so we love getting into it. It's just fun, nerdy stuff. But like once you find something that's, you know, that's workable, just run with it, and don't let that stop you from doing bigger things, because you'll be amazed at some productions what was recorded on what. Like you said, some guys are like, oh, it has to be the Neumann U47 or, you know, 47,
whatever it happens to be. Yeah,
87. Those are stupid expensive.
$8,000.
But what I did, and this is really technical, but I went and found the parts. I modded my microphone with the same internals for about $150. I have a mic that is exactly the same as a $4,000 U87, or you could have somebody else do it for you, you know. And then so I have the same sound, and nobody can tell the difference. I can do stuff for Sony or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, thanks for doing that mic." It's like, you're welcome. You're welcome, my friend. But yeah, and then just like YouTube, there are so many cool resources that you said, like something I wish I would have known. I wish I would have known about the Sound Ideas guy, Sound Speeds guy for production audio. He is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So. Or talk to, and now you know people, like talk to these guys.
Yeah, everything I learned was getting on set, doing terrible short films, and Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah.
That's it.
Everybody starts somewhere.
That was it.
Yep.
Don't go into debt.
Yeah, don't go into debt.
Thank you guys for coming in. Yeah, feel free to ask these guys questions. I mean, I met them, and like the first thing I did was start asking them questions. And I even started an audio, but these guys just know so much. It's awesome. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. And yeah, you guys are free to kind of hang out and keep chit-chatting, but that's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.